Hi, you saw that title and you're probably here to yell at me. Just give me a second, okay? I want to talk about one of my favorite movies of all time, and definitely my favorite Batman movie. I'm a huge Batman fan. Breaking news, pale YouTube man loves Batman. What a surprise. But I've been talking about this movie for years, on Game Ranks, especially on Pretty Much It, but never really went on record and dove deep into it. And since with this channel now, I'm just making whatever video comes to mind. I'm making less videos for the YouTube algorithm. This was a great time to talk about it. Not to mention the fact that Batman Begins originally released in June of 2005. So a couple weeks back, I decided, hey, it's the anniversary to movie. Let me kick back and watch it again. I have a lot to say about it. I'm really excited. Just bear with me. And before I get into it, I want to do the obligatory YouTuber thing. I don't usually do this, but clicking that like button does help me, and also subscribing and hitting the notification bell, because I put out videos like once a week-ish here. I would really appreciate it, especially for videos like this, which I know aren't going out to like the masses. Thanks, guys. But Batman Begins is my favorite Batman movie, like I said, besides Mask of the Phantasm, which is kind of a given at this point. But Batman Begins, for me, still is the perfect Batman movie. Now, yes, I do think it is better than the beautiful, the incredible Dark Knight. Yes, I have a weird way of looking at these movies. I look at Batman Begins as a great Batman movie. It's fun, it's entertaining, it gives me everything I want as a Batman fan. Now, Dark Knight, on the other hand, is a great Batman film, which is weird to use those distinctions. I'm not like a film major or anything, but like movie, film, I kind of like in my brain use them to justify different vibes. The Dark Knight does some incredible things. It takes the Batman character and the Batman world and does some really interesting things with it. But for me, as a Batman fan, what I want, Batman Begins really gave me everything, especially with just probably one of the better Bruce Wayne origin stories. It just really made sense and worked perfectly. It takes elements from Year One, it takes elements from original Origins, it takes elements from the animated series, and kind of couples it into this like semi-believable thing that still manages to have that movie charm that just makes you fall in love with it and feel like you're on like an old school movie adventure, The timeline bounces around and stuff, but I think the earliest parts of the movie, before he even gets a suit, is just some of the best stuff. The way they set him up, the way they set up his ideologies, the way they set up his techniques, his motives. Basically every aspect of Bruce Wayne's weird life is so wonderfully established here. Of course, the League of Shadows and Ra's al Ghul. I'm going to refer to him as Ra's al Ghul because that's how they pronounce it in this movie. You could say Ra's al Ghul, whatever. But what they do here with Batman's training and Batman's origin and all that, I love, because it does have this grand sense of adventure. From getting mixed up with gangs and heists to getting into jail and just beating on dudes in jail and practicing throughout the world, for Bruce Wayne to finally hearken on this journey and get dumped out in the middle of nowhere in this incredible landscape, only to like summit a mountain. All of that is really cool, but also if you couple it with the music in this movie, I know it like continues on with the series, but I think here is where it was very clearly, it was made and designed for this movie. The main themes, the main ideas, the big swelling, I feel like that whole vibe was completely established for Bruce Wayne's journey to the League of Shadows. And it really does a great job of making it feel like a big freaking deal. Like the stakes are huge. This group is mysterious. Bruce is still lost and he's trying to find his way. And the music really kind of seals the deal. Between that and him returning back to Gotham, and you're getting glimpses of the early Commissioner Gordon, the cop that comes from Chicago. He doesn't want to be corrupt like all the other Gotham cops. It's like titular perfect Commissioner Gordon, Jim Gordon in this case. You also have like a fantastic Carmine Falcone. I think that it was just portrayed perfectly. You hate him, but he's kind of charismatic and kind of funny, but he's absolutely just a downright criminal villain in all of the right ways, in the perfect mob boss way. Cillian Murphy really hams it up as Dr. Crane, as Scarecrow. He's here. Who? The Batman. Like, who does that? Like, that's why I like this movie, because it's not afraid to go a little campy, and it does it just the right amount. But it does it while not going full Batman. It's very interesting the way it takes the Batman elements. It kind of crams in a lot. It's dealing with a lot. You have a lot of Thomas and Martha Wayne. Well, really more Thomas Wayne. You have Alfred. You have Arkham Asylum. You technically have Victor Zsasz. You have Lucius Fox. You have all these Batman elements, all these things that diehard Batman fans, I would say, would want to see in a movie, like a big budget, crazy Batman movie, but it doesn't stumble over itself trying to appease to all that. It's not trying to like totally catch up to a perfect representation of each character. It does do their things with it, but it does it with this confidence and this reverence that I think is like kind of a tightrope walk that a lot of comic book movies have to do, and some pull it off, some don't. Some go in completely different directions and do great things. Some try and carbon copy the comics and kind of fail. I think this is a perfect happy medium as somebody who has read thousands of Batman comics. It tries its own thing a little bit with giving Bruce Wayne a love interest and somebody who is connected to his childhood, which is an interesting approach because it's not something you very often see as like a main core element, except for certain arcs. Like you don't see someone really carry over from Bruce Wayne's childhood. A lot of times it's usually a male. Here it's a female. And Katie Holmes did a really good job, I think. Actually, fun fact, this is the only movie Katie Holmes has ever been in. But all these characters are grouped in with essentially the rise, the creation of the idea of Batman, and it's done in a way that a lot of people have described as like dark and gritty and hyper realistic, but I don't know what it is. It's almost like a little bit, it's dark, but it's more mysterious, it's more bellowing, it's more legendary, I'd say. Like those are like the vibes I get, that those are the words that come to mind, and that's something that I think Batman should have, especially as someone who grew up on the animated series. This is a pretty good version of my Batman. He kicks ass, of course, but he's also really smart. But at least at this point, you also get the interesting thing, especially for moviegoers who aren't used to all this Batman stuff. You get to see Batman make mistakes. And I gotta say, as a kid who, I guess I was like, what, 14 years old when this movie came out? About 14, 15, I don't know. Just being an impressionable kid who, I feel like a lot of my stuff, a lot of my upbringing, like I was one of those kids who was raised by TV and movies, for better or for worse, in some ways. And I think for me at that age, that like shitty age, sorry if you're 14 or 15, I think to watch a big superhero movie, one of my big favorite superhero characters, and to have themes like this presented at me, you know, like Thomas Wayne saying, "Why do we fall, Bruce? So we can learn to pick ourselves back up." And of course, it's not who I am underneath, but it's what I do that defines me. I think as a kid, seeing and hearing those things is important. And I think superhero movies are good for things like that. Comic books are good for things like that. They can instill things in you. And I think Batman Begins kind of understood that in a way that not a lot of these other films do. It's absolutely gorgeous, of course. I will also say I am a stickler for a good Gotham. I still think that Tim Burton did a really incredible job, but I think Batman Begins is right up there. Unfortunately for me, they lose it with Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises, but for Batman Begins, if you take a look, they really had something great going here. They had this incredible like marriage of like downtown Chicago, but also kind of doing their own thing and adding more Gotham-esque real grit and grime. They use some of the underground areas of Chicago to kind of replicate that and add to it. And then, of course, right in the middle of the river, they throw a big CGI version of the Narrows. So you have the Gotham City Narrows, which of course Arkham City is right in it, and it's so cool. And they do that with also having like an endless skyline, endless peninsulas of skyscrapers and huge buildings, and this awful, shitty, crime-ridden place packed in the middle of it, which is like the absolute hellhole. And the movie does do a good job of making it feel claustrophobic when the plot really goes down and you are in there. I missed that in The Dark Knight. That was a bummer, coming to see that, oh, clearly The Dark Knight, they're very much using just Chicago and New York, and that's it. I feel like Batman Begins had a little bit more. It gave you a little bit more of like an interesting, unique skyline. It gave you more of the Narrows type stuff. It maybe gave you more of like the dirty, hyper gritty alleyway stuff. Like where Bruce Wayne's parents get shot behind the theater in Batman Begins. Look at that. That is the most disgusting, like over the top, ridiculously decorated alleyway, but it's perfect, man. It also hit at the right time for me as a kid. Like it just had so many memorable moments and iconic lines that then I would like kind of carry on with me. Like as a teenager, like working retail jobs with some friends, I remember like working at a grocery store, and I had a friend there who also loved Batman Begins way too much, and we would just quote lines to each other. You know, one of us would like be working in the frozen food aisle, and the other person would walk by and be like, "Your father's death was not your fault." You're like going by the deli aisle and being like, "Oh, you know, don't like falafel. Nice coat. Like all of those lines, like the movie did have humor. Maybe it had a little bit too much humor in spots, especially where the series would go on to take itself a bit more seriously, but I thought it was a good amount of levity and it was entertaining. And again, it goes back to my thing where it's like Batman Begins is like a movie where Dark Knight is a film. Batman Begins is not a perfect movie, though, I'll acknowledge that. I mean, the plot really stumbles over itself in a lot of ways, especially once it gets to the League of Shadows having the whole water vapor machine. The amount of times towards the end of the movie, towards like the crescendo action scene, they have people on camera explaining what it means for the water to be vaporized within the downtown area. It's really like exposition heavy, and it kind of stumbles over itself. Like the plot is a very Batman plot, but it kind of stumbles over itself a little bit in that regard, like in terms of explaining it to the general audience. It kind of reminds me of Man of Steel, when they were like, oh my God, they're terraforming the earth. And then one character goes, what's terraforming? And then the other character goes, here, let me explain it to you. Stuff like that. Also, the suit isn't really that great. I like it. I have many figures and statues of it, but they clearly got it way better in The Dark Knight. I think the silhouette is great in this one, though. I think also, especially for certain shots of this movie, like the sweeping shot of him standing on the ledge, just still, he almost looks like a statue. I love imagery like that, and they really work with the Batsuit in great ways. But it was a little awkward. Like he very much he has to move like this because they didn't figure out the neck thing, and it's really funny. And unfortunately, that kind of affects the fight scenes. I think the fight scenes in the later movies are much stronger. They very much actually will show the actor or the stuntman doing his thing. Batman Begins has a lot of cuts and stuff like that, but at the very least, Batman Begins has sword fights, and I love sword fights. I barely even spent time on like Christian Bale and Bruce Wayne himself. I think he is a fantastic Bruce Wayne, and they thankfully gave him a lot to work with. Like, he is very much a character. Bruce Wayne in this movie, to me, is very much how a younger Bruce Wayne would be in an early Batman story, and I like it a lot. And then Batman, on his side, he has some like imposing thing to him. Most specifically, I don't know what it is. It's just a look of him. The shot in the subway when Rachel scares away the mugger and turns around and Batman is there. That shot of him, I don't know what they did, but he looks incredible. Christian Bale really gave a shit, and honestly, everybody in this movie gave a damn. Even Morgan Freeman showed up, and I think did a fantastic job, especially just with what they do with his character and how they kind of apply some real world applications to Batman's equipment, kind of making it like a lot of Batman's equipment was developed for crazy military purposes, and then they double it back with him kind of repurposing them for his needs. But again, like Morgan Freeman kind of facilitating that, I think he did a really good job, down to people like you have Rutger Hauer as one of the board members. Didn't you get the memo? Like, that's it's so good. It really is a movie I would love to eventually do like a commentary track on, or like a big long YouTube video essay or something like that, because there's so much more to talk about. I want to talk about every single element, every single scene, but there isn't enough time. I've honestly kept you guys long enough, but I think Batman Begins, for me, excels in so many ways because it understands the concept of fear, and it uses it as a whole plot thing, becoming a legend, becoming a symbol. They understand a young Bruce Wayne. They do an incredible job with Batman's origin. They juggle so many iconic Batman characters. They do so much with Scarecrow and fear and how that ties in with Bruce Wayne's fear, and couple them together. It's just like really marriages into like a perfect origin story. It's got a kick-ass Carmine Falcone, which every good Batman story should. It understands Gotham really well, both visually and conceptually. Everyone in it is a fantastic actor. There's so many memorable lines. There's moments of levity, but there's just this grand, sweeping sense of adventure and a little mysterious and maybe a little grim darkness. All of those things, especially with the fact that it brings a couple life lessons to it, all of those things kind of come together and to me make one of the best Batman things ever. And I love it, dude. So I will say that to you. If it's been a while, give Batman Begins a watch. I know it's definitely different types of people, different strokes for different folks. You may love Dark Knight more. You might like Batman Begins like me. You might like Dark Knight Rises the best, which makes you a very interesting person. I'm not dunking on you. I'm not saying the movie's bad. I don't know. That's a whole other conversation. I want to hear from you guys, though. Let's talk about Batman Begins. I want to hear a couple things, like obviously what you think. But I would love to know what your favorite line is. For me, I gotta say, like, I just love every single thing that Liam Neeson says in this movie. I don't know why, I can't help it. But let's talk about anything Batman Begins. I would love to hear from you guys, and thank you for watching this. If you did sit around this whole time watching me ramble, like I said earlier, clicking the like button and subscribing and maybe sharing with somebody else that loves Batman Begins, that would really help me out, and I would really appreciate that because I'm trying something different here. But thank you guys for being here. I love you. I'll see you guys next time. Subscribe because video games.